Welcome to a special Friday night episode of Taking It to the Nub. I'm your host, Boston Jimmy, and tonight I have a guest on that, I realized after 6 seasons, I've never actually had him on the show. I've talked to him at different events, I've been to his shops, but never had him on the show, and I've rated his cigars. But tonight, I've got Mr. Michael, and I'm going to mess this name up again, but we're going to try it. It's Szczepankewicz. Mike Szczepankewicz from Powstanie Cigars. And before we do that, before I bring him in, we're just going to do a quick little advertising segment, and then we're going to roll with the show. So with that, let's get everything rock and rolling, and boom.
Brought to you by Cuevas Cigars. In the 19th century, Juan Cuevas, Spanish immigrant from Santander, began what was to be a family business which now spans 4 generations. Like others fortunate enough to live and work in Pinar del Rio province of Cuba, Juan commenced cultivating tobacco, turning it into a successful business. Years later, in the Cibao Valley of the Dominican Republic, Luis Cuevas Sr., Juan Jr.'s son, carried on the family tradition of handcrafting fine cigars in the family's cigar factory, Tabacalera Las Lavas. Today, Luis Sr. is joined by his son Luis Jr. in the manufacturing and sale of premium long filler cigars. So check out Cuevas Cigars at www.casacuevascigars.com and on their Instagram and Facebook channels.
Catelli Cigars is back. The past few years brought many questions and changes to the cigar industry. In the wake of all uncertainty, Catelli Cigars decided to take a break and try their hand in the retail side of cigars. With 2 shops under their belt, first Riverside Cigar Bar, and now the Catelli Cigar Lounge in Vero Beach, Florida, they are now more educated in the retail and the wholesale sides of the cigar business. During this time, they received many inquiries about their cigars returning to the market. Making the difficult decision to take a break from their brand was eased, knowing that when the time was right, Catelli would be back, and now they are. Catelli is excited to bring their first release, the Catelli Box Air, back to market. The Box Air, a rich box-pressed San Andreas Mexican Maduro with a Nicaraguan binder and filler, come in Box Air's 3 original sizes, Robusto, Toro, and Gordo. You can check out Catelli Cigars at catellicigars.com. And also check out their Facebook and Instagram pages.
Okay, let's bring Mike in. How are you, Mike? I think I said your name right when I introduced you. I did it twice. I think I practiced it, so I'll have to keep practicing it. So when I see you at PCA, I could shake your hand and call you the proper name.
There you go.
How's everything going, man? I was talking to you before the show, and in 6 years, I've been running this 6 seasons. This is the first time you've been on. I thought you were going to be a repeat guest. I go back on my list. I'm like, you've never been on my show.
Yeah. Those things happen. Just time gets in the way. I can't believe it's already 6 years. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, right. I can't believe I've been doing this stuff for this 6 years, not to mention Stogie Press for 12.
Right.
It's been going on. I mean, it's like a full-time job now.
It just pays a lot less normally, you know?
Just don't pay that much.
Exactly.
A lot of pleasure, for the most part, but some aggravations, right? We all, we have this passion for this thing, and that drives us, but there's still this aggravation that you're like, just pay me enough money for the aggravation
Yeah.
again.
No, I totally agree. I mean, Palmer and I have been running the Cigar Hustlers podcast I thought it was only 5 years, but apparently it's been 7 years.
You
And
guys started right before me. Yeah.
yeah, and I spend money on it every year. It doesn't make any money for us whatsoever, but you always want to add new stuff. You want to get new cameras, you want to get new mics, you need new editing software. The list just goes on and on and on. Lenses, like whatever. So
Hmm.
it's forever this challenge. But if you're not doing it, then you instantly become kind of archaic with your format, and you don't want to do that either. Like, you have a beautiful setup, your camera looks fantastic, I can hear you clearly, so all the things that you're doing correctly, right?
I did upgrade my microphone this year because that was an issue.
Right.
The camera is really just a very, very good webcam,
Right.
right? And
Where
believe it or not, the
Right.
magic of the lighting, I found out, as much as I have, my photographic lights, studio lights that we use sometimes,
Right.
the separate screen angled towards me with a white background on it
Right.
gives you this.
No
It's
kidding.
amazing. I discovered that like 6 months ago. I was like, wow, I don't really need these big stand-up lights.
Right.
It's just a flat screen looking at me that's just white.
Isn't that incredible?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing as the light.
Right.
So there are ways you can do this, but then, like you said, there are those other crazy expenses. I post produce everything, so it goes through Premiere Pro. I got to renew that every year with the Adobe license, and that's not cheap. I mean, that's like ridiculous money they charge you when you can't get around it.
Right.
You know, I tried other applications, and none of them really did the job I needed to. I did buy a new computer, so because the processing power that it draws, every time they upgrade the software, suddenly they're in cahoots with the people that are making the computers. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I preach into the choir on that one for sure. Um, so PCA is coming up.
Yes.
Um, I wanted to, once I was planning out my shows, I was like, man, I got to get Mike on. And I figured this would be a good time to have you on just before PCA, because I know you're going to get real busy within a nanosecond after this call, probably, as you guys prep to get out there. So I was up in the Merritt Island area, and I stopped into a good friend of ours' place there, Shirtless Mike, and
Hey.
because I know he carries the Postana brand, and I picked up the new San Andreas, nice Bellicoso. Um, Talk to me about this cigar. This is going to be is this one of the things you're featuring at PCA, or the
Yeah.
thing you?
No, so we just released that about, I think, a month ago.
Mhm.
I blended it, I want to say middle of last year sometime, March or April-ish. And I went down to NicaSueño and I started working with Skip, and Alex was there as well. And we needed to create something to replace the broadleaf, because the broadleaf is becoming an issue as far as getting the same quality product that they had before. So they've been toying with a lot of San Andreas things, and that was a wrapper that was readily available, and we just started working on a blend and started kind of piecing it together. What's really kind of fascinating about it is that Skip's mind and taste and palate is totally different in comparison to mine. So we make a cigar, or I start with the cigar. He gives me ideas for that creation, and then I add things. He'll take away things. He'll add things, and I'm like, no, now it tastes like yours. Now it tastes like it's aroma, and we kind of deviated away from where we were at with what I thought felt was more mine. So, it doesn't take a long time to do it because of the fact that they already have a lot of great tobacco there, right? So unless I'm going in looking for something in particular, like, hey, I want to work specifically with this wrapper, or specifically with this binder, that's when things really kind of get a little more complicated. So,
Well,
fortunately, good.
no, I can tell you that I just fired. I've never had this. I'm smoking it the first time with you right now.
Awesome.
Okay, so I have not experienced this cigar. Everybody know that. So this is like my brain when I smoke cigars. People will now know. So the beginning of this cigar, the pre-light was, it kind of had, a little bit of barnyard, not heavy, maybe some citrus or something. There was some things in there that were like, oh, okay, all right, I know what's this going to be like, right? Boom, little pepper right off the front, and then I'm getting this creamy chocolate note that comes in with a nutty essence, and I'm right there.
There you
I
go.
mean, it just if that continues, this is a solidly good cigar.
Yeah, thank you. And I honestly believe that that's just a testament of the factory that I work with. If I was working with, I've been fortunate enough to be working with them for so long, where they were really kind of in their infancy when their factory got going. So there's a ton of trust there,
Hmm.
and it makes a big difference. I know that they're never gonna do anything sideways at 100%. They're gonna be completely honest with me and transparent with everything, and because of that, I know what they produce. I know they make they now that they're doing pre-industry at this point, they're taking care of the tobacco even one step further than what they did in the past. So things are just absolutely amazing. It's fun to be there. It's fun to make those blends. It's like being in a candy store almost, It's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Like, oh, let's try this, let's try this, let's do this. So
How long did it take you to put this blend together compared to the other blends that you've worked on? Was it the same amount of time, or did you do something special with this one? Take a little longer?
no, it doesn't really take long. The one cool part about having Alex there is there's some communication as far as what my vision is and what I'm thinking as far as the concept for the blend, and he can make some stuff in advance before I get there, which is awesome. So we've done that a couple times. We did that this last time, and it gave us a good basis to kind of start off of. So once I was there, then I'm like, okay, let's try. Why don't we do this? Why don't we try this? Why don't we change the other things around? And then you have the grand poobah, Skip chiming in and giving in his 2 cents, and it's always warranted. The guy has been blending now for over a decade, so between him and myself, and then Alex kind of helping facilitate things, you get there fast, man. It's like all the hard work has already been done.
Hmm?
That's the blessing of working in that factory is it's all done. It's you go in and you say, here's what I'm thinking. Okay, boom, it's together. Okay, let's tweak. All right, I think we have a cigar. Perfect. And that's it. The Habano that I blended, even when they were in their infancy, that was blended in the day. All of these things are blended in the day. I don't understand sometimes the concepts of, oh, it took years for us to create this, and I had to go back and I do all this. You know, I understand some of that aspect. I understand if you're working with a particular factory and you're trying to facilitate a specific tobacco or something of that, that's relative, right? Hey, I'm really looking for this, I don't know, Matafina, and I haven't found the right one yet, or something. I could understand that. The people that are in this industry, a lot of them aren't doing that anyways. They're not so hardcore about seeking one particular thing. They're just more concerned about selling the story. And I'm just like, that's not me. I can't be that guy. You know?
Now, when you were looking at, you were saying that trying to find something to replace the broadleaf. So, are you a San Andreas fan in the past, or have you learned to become it now that you've got some banging San Andreas on your cigar?
No, I've always loved San Andreas. I've always been a Padron fan. I mean, I don't know who isn't a Padron guy.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're only on the lighter end of the spectrum, there's probably two or three Padron cigars that if I can walk into a humidor in a pinch and I can't find anything, I can gravitate to one of those three, and they should have it, right? And that's number in order. The 50th Toro Maduro, I think that's absolutely incredible. And the 85th Maduro, I think, is fantastic too. And then the 64 Torp Maduro. Those are three.
Nice.
You can find them anywhere. And there's nothing crazy about them. They're not extremely complex. The flavor profile is exquisite. You know what you're getting every single time. So I've always liked that. I've always enjoyed San Andreas when it comes to, like, if you think about in the mainstream logic, right? Now, when RoMa Craft created the Neanderthal HN, forget it, man. I've always loved San Andreas from that point there on. I smoke more Neanderthal HN. Well, I mean, other than Postania, the Neanderthal HN, I probably smoke 2 a day, right? Postania, the brand, between 3 or 4 blends, I probably smoke 3 or 4 a day minimum, right? So, but I always end my night. With a Neanderthal, still to this day, a Neanderthal HN, right?
Nice.
So, when the opportunity came up to work with San Andreas, I was excited about it. The challenge with working with a San Andreas wrapper is that a lot of them taste the same. There's not a lot of thought process into the blend as far as your interior fillers, your binders. Guys just make a cigar, or not even guys. People will want to make a San Andreas cigar. A factory will make a cigar, and boom, here you go. There's nothing special about it. So if you go in that with the mindset of, hey, I want to make sure that this San Andreas doesn't taste like any other San Andreas, you can build that as long as the factory will set you up with that. If the factory doesn't care and they just want your money, then they're just going to make you a San Andreas. You're going to feel like it's the greatest thing ever because, hey, everybody's kid is the cutest, right? And you're going to, right? Isn't that true?
That's very true. Trust me. How many, you'd be surprised how many people send me cigars to review, small people. All right.
What do you think?
And they don't even get reviewed because I can't. I'll kill them.
Right. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to, I think that's always, we have a Patreon, right, where we review a cigar, and it's like a paid membership thing. And it's really kind of done to be a little more inside baseball, and it's a little more private. So we can kind of say how we feel about a particular cigar. And it's always going to be open and honest. I don't care if you're my best friend. If you're my best friend and you made a cigar and I think it's horseshit, like what kind of friend am I if I'm not going to tell you, hey man, please don't do that. Just please. How many have you produced? Okay, well, let's figure out a way to get your money out of this. Let's take the bands off or whatever, and let's go a different direction, because I don't want to see you guys. I don't want to see them lose, but I'm not going to tell them that it's great either,
So then, speaking of the guts, so we got San Andreas on the outside, and what's the binder and the fillers in this one?
I don't really talk a lot about the binders or the fillers. Sorry. The binders are Habano, but the fillers are Dominican and Nicaraguan.
Okay.
And there's 2 reasons why. It's not a big secret. That's not how I look at things. But I would be doing you a disservice if I told you what it was, because to be honest, I don't fully remember off the top of my head. We go in, we break down, we say, let's do these components, let's do this. Okay. Here's the blend, make a cigar. Right. And, I have so much trust, and that's a little crazy, but I have so much trust in NicaSueño, and I'll tell you why. When my son is about to be 10, he'll be 10 in September. When my wife was pregnant, I made the Connecticut cigar in the Corona Gorda format. And my thoughts were, hey, I want an Ecuadorian Connecticut cigar, but I want it to have more body, and I want to go Pennsylvania broadleaf binder. And then we would tweak the fillers and look into the interior and make it whatever specifically. That I made 200 sticks of Corona Gordas. That was it. You fast forward 9 years later, and I say, hey, Skip, do you remember that Connecticut I made? And he's like, hold on. Within less than a half hour, he sends me a picture of the day of the piece of paper of the blend that we made on that. I go, that's it. That's exactly what it is.
That became the justice, right?
Yeah. So, so I have full trust in these guys, especially Skip in the factory, that were, what's in it. I don't know. I could tell you if I go back and look at it and tell you exactly what it is, but do I know offhand? No. I got PCA orders I got to worry about. I got I got 3 different football teams that I'm coaching. I'm coaching a basketball team. I'm trying my best to be a great husband. I'm trying to run a successful retail store, and then I get to edit clips all day, for my podcast, and then we have to, you know what I mean? Like it goes on and on forever. It's so I just don't. In my mind, I guess I'm like, I don't have to remember this. Somebody else has this covered, and it's gone, right? So that's really the truth behind it.
Construction, look at this. For those that know me, know I love nice even burns. There's nothing wonky about this at all. It's got its nice solid stacking dimes ash on it. It's beautiful so far. Why the Bellicoso? Why that Vicol this time?
So, you have your standard sizes. So we have the Robusto and the Toro. I think that it's always kind of and when I was making the Habano and the broadleaf, I wanted the Perfecto because at that point Mode 5 had just launched and I really loved it, and there's more complexity to it and all these other things. So that happened, right? We made the Perfecto. So now I have a Vitola that's in the same track as RoMa, and I don't want that either, right? I don't want everything to be the same. So the Bellicoso was just a different size. It was a little bit bigger on the gauge. So that's what we went with. Said, hey, why not do a 5.5 by 54? And, it's going to be our biggest gauge cigar that we have to date until we release this upcoming Warbear. So that was it. There's no, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's so many times you hear this crazy nuanced story of this is why I did that or whatever. I just want to make sure it was different. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't the same as RoMa,
So when you smoke a Bellicoso, how do you cut the cap on a Bellicoso? What a Bellicoso in this case? Because I'll show you how I cut mine.
Okay, yours is probably gonna be different than mine. I just generally do a straight cut, but it's a little bit smaller on the top than it would be your average cut for a Toro or anything like that.
Right.
So it still bends in a little bit.
So I've cut it definitely above the shoulder. It's still got the dip going back on it. It's hard to see it here,
right.
But you kind of still got the fade going into it. Not knowing the cigar, I would generally decide. Sometimes I like a smaller cut.
Right.
I like to have that smoke concentrated through the hole. Okay. Same thing with a torpedo. I like to have I had an old Cuban friend of mine that once showed me some ways that the Cubans would smoke cigars, right? Because they didn't have cutters. They didn't have all this fancy things we have. And he would just basically take a cigar and he'd do one or two things. He always had a fingernail where you just take the top off. Or he would take it and he would just nip the edge of the cap. Not pull the cap off. Just nip it a little. And all that smoke concentrated through that tiny little pinhole.
Right.
Right. And when he showed me that, I was like, how you get any drawer out of it? He goes, try it. If you don't get enough, you take a little nip, another little nip. And and the intensity of the smoke started getting better, okay, when he was doing that. So I always took that forward and said, when I have things like torpedoes, I know they're designed so that you can cut it. If you don't like it, you cut a little more.
Right.
If it's not opening up, you cut a little more.
Right. And everything that's coming out of that factory is a little bit heavier on the gram as far as weight is concerned.
Mhm.
So, you know, you may have been even a little more reticent to make it a smaller cut. Like, well, what if I cut this and it's plugged or something like that? I mean, that's not going to be the case, but you could think that because of the fact of what it would weigh in at, more often than not, I see too many brands that are coming in too light, where you pick a cigar up off the shelf and you're like, ooh, this is off. This is
Oh, yes.
2 or 3 grams too light.
You begin to feel it in your hand, and you don't have to squeeze it,
Right.
right?
You just
You
know.
just like,
You've smoked enough of them where you're like, oh, no,
RoMa's always been a little on the heavier side.
yeah, they're heavier on the gram. I like to say heavy on the gram. People are like,
Heavy on the
what?
ground.
You know, um, I had a manufacturer one day. He was talking to me about his product, and he's a good guy. I really like this guy, and I'm telling him like, look, man, what you're making right now, you're coming in 3 or 4 grams too light. And he goes down this whole diatribe to me, explaining about that it's fermentation process, and I'm like,
What? What?
okay, all right, so yeah, well, that's the problem with this
Oh,
industry.
he's over fermented it so that there's holes in the leaf.
I don't like
There's
it's all
less
about the
there's
BS.
less leaf in the leaf.
Right. It just doesn't even make sense. And once he had said that to me, I'm like, okay, so this is where the conversation is going to go. And I'm just done. I'm like, all right, dude, whatever. Let's just have lunch. Wish you the best. Like you can only, I think that that's my biggest downfall as a person is that I want to help everybody. I'm all for that. I love helping people. And I think sometimes I have to quickly learn when to shut up and understand that, you know, any experience that I have, if I'm trying to give it off as advice, it's not warranted in this scenario. And I need
Right.
to, so, that's taken some time for me as a person, but there
Take a
again,
little more time.
yeah,
I have the same problem, and I'm a little older, and I still do it, and I still have to catch myself going, you're preaching, you're not advising, you didn't get asked for advice. So now I always I try to tell people sometimes, would you like my advice on that? And they say no. I say, okay.
yeah, uh, I'm trying to do a better job of just keeping it close to my tight circle. You know what I mean? The people I love and respect the most. And, every once in a while I have those moments of weakness, but more often than not, I have found myself just pulling back, I'm like, oh, okay. Wish you the best. But, the other aspect of that too, is that having the platform with the podcast where I can kind of speak my opinions, to Palmer, you know, it doesn't really get much better than that for me. So I can say how I want to say. He can argue with me if he disagrees, and that's where the entertainment kind of ensues. And then I have it for the world to see. So I recently did this whole post and breakdown about the fire, AJ's fire, and what I thought.
Oh, yeah, we can get into that. That's yeah.
And I was talking about it. I was talking about that it's probably these phosphine tablets, and here's why I think it is. And it was really funny to me because I got people that you're totally wrong, and here's why, and this is what I think it is, and blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I had friends of mine say, hey, I don't think you're right on this, and here's why. And then you fast forward 3 days later, and it was the tablets, right?
And what tablets? Oh, for
So there are these little phosphine tablets, and what they are is they release them out into the air in where your bales and your tobacco are, and it's like a process in order to kill off tobacco beetles, right? Well, then it entirely airs out, and it's good to use, right? I don't know the exact details on it, and I don't know if we'll ever know, but there are two ways for it to ignite. One is when the gas is in the air, if there's an ignition from a spark or a flame or something of that magnitude. I don't think that would happen when the pellets were being released for that purpose. However, if a seal has broke, or high temperature, if it breaks, if the tablets are in over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, they'll trigger, right? And it'll engulf in flame. So I don't know if they got stuck in 200-degree Fahrenheit areas in the warehouse. It's possible. I just think that maybe something had broke, like one of these containers had combusted or popped, and then spark and then fire, right? It's something that I think is happening a lot. It's happened, a ton in the industry. And it's the more and more we kind of talk about it, the more and more comes to light, and the more we can see some progress in it being rectified.
Now, I did hear in the very beginning of the story, when it started to break, I did hear that it was caused by a short circuit. So if it was created by a short circuit, and short circuit could very well be a translation through the languages, which is a spark, right? That could go right to what you're saying. It could have just been a light bulb or an electrical circuit short that did spark and cause that. That makes sense. I can accept that.
I'll send you the article where they blamed it flat out on the tablet, and they said that it just got into too hot of a temperature, and they combusted.
Wow.
So
That's
crazy, right? So but let me back up. So what was cool about it was, I get to say these things, and I had people flat out saying to me I was wrong, and then I had friends even saying to me, hey, they disagreed. But once they figured out that I was right in the scenario, the ones that are my true friends, they came back and said, damn, bro, you were 100% correct, right? The guys that had it completely wrong, what do? They dig their heels in, and they stick with their answer. It's like, all right, whatever, man. I don't need to have this argument with you. That's fine. I don't care. Like, I know that this is an issue, and I want to see, I know that, first of all, AJ's going to fix it.
AJ's going to fix it, and I don't know what you do at Skip's factory, how he handles that type of stuff, but AJ's going to fix this, and AJ's going to fix it to the point where the whole industry is going to say, oh, this is what we must do to protect our factories, because he's going to have people tell him probably to say, this is the better way to do this.
Yeah, there's definitely a better standard out there. I think that there's actually tablets that aren't as combustible already in existence. So we'll see if you start to, but they're more expensive. So it'll be interesting to see if those things come to fruition or not, and if they come to fruition in his factory.
A couple of million cigars, maybe the expense is worth it.
I would say so for sure. I mean, how many people have a job right now? Even like, and I'm sure that AJ's taking care of those guys. Those people, I would assume that that's the case. However, they're still out of work. You're still down a factory. You're down tobacco. You're down manufacturing goods. All of those things are going to take a long time to come back, even with the capital and the ability that AJ has, because AJ is probably one of the highest in the industry that can get it done right as fast as possible.
Yeah. And this is going to be topic. The two topics at PCA.
Yes.
It's going to be AJ, which would have been the topic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And tariffs are going to be the second topic. All right. Okay. Everybody's going to want to know what's going on, what are you going to do, how are you going to handle it. I know Skip, I follow Skip constantly. I chime in once in a while. The whole issue of, how much do you pass on, what's the pass through, how does it work, how much is it going to cost the end consumer. But you see, the problem for me with that is it's not so much the cost, right? They take 18% of wholesale, right?
Right.
What does that really work out to be? Pennies, you know.
Sure.
But it's not so much that, we as a cigar industry and cigar nerds and cigar people that have to talk about stuff all the time are focused on, how much the cigars are going to go up. But it's the potential of how much everything else goes up around you, independent of cigars. This is a luxury product, right?
Sure.
So you end up looking at it and you're saying, hey, now all of a sudden my other things have gone up. My car insurance goes up because they have to pay for parts in case you get in a collision because the parts went up. And before you know it, all this stuff starts adding up. And you sit there and you go, maybe you don't smoke as many of these. That to me is even a bigger problem for an industry like this. This is a luxury industry, or at
Right.
least you think it is, right? I mean, but still, people spending good money for cigars. What does this one here cost?
Somewhere between 11 and 14, I think, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. We're in a sweet spot on the shelf right now, somewhere around $13 to $14.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been ratcheting up, even before all of this, has been ratcheting up over the last couple of years again. So when you start reaching in your pocket and you go, if your gas goes up, and this goes up, and that goes up, that disposable income you had, you no longer have, right? Until this all gets resolved, and hopefully it will, because I think it's all a ploy, and eventually we're going to go back to some normality, all right? But that's going to be a good. I mean, this is going to be a discussion. You see, United Cigars came out today and said they're dropping prices.
Right.
Settle down. Everybody's doing their. It's like, okay, you know what? We're gonna lower prices. Instead.
Well, there's a lot of there that we can cover. So for one, I think if anybody's dropping cigar prices, it's because they want cigars to move at a faster rate, regardless. Whoever that is, if you're lowering prices, then maybe your prices were too high to begin with.
Bing.
I can argue that. That's usually the most obvious. One thing that I do find kind of interesting that no one has really kind of talked about is I'm starting to see all these factories jump over to Honduras, right? And I'm like, hey, why did Pepin just open it up in Honduras? Why are these guys opening up in Honduras? I mean, this is tinfoil hat-ish.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that something's going on that you don't really know about. And I know that tariffs are only 10% in Houston, in Honduras, not 18.
Right. That's
right?
Correct.
If it's a more friendly way of getting products over here, then that could be it. That could be one of the reasons why they're doing it. For me, as far as I'm concerned, as far as you have to look at life in two things, right? For one, you try and be 5 moves ahead, and you also want to be able to address the problems that are going on in a whim, right? So what does that mean for me? Do I know what's going to happen with tariffs by the time that I'm about to get product again? No, I don't. Okay. So okay, I acknowledge the fact that this is going on. But for me, at the end of the day, I have plans to release my Warbear. I have plans to release SBC. I have plans to continue to grow and establish more in Florida. And then I have plans to eventually replace Palmer in Florida with a rep so that he can go to other areas, right? So that's like my next 4 or 5 moves solely based on wholesale, not touching retail, not touching online sales, not touching podcast growth. not touching any of those things. So the whole tariff thing for me, it's just not there. I'm just not there. As a company, I'm not there. I'm not, I'm not panicking until it gets closer to my doorstep. And, when it gets there, I'll figure it out. I'm not, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, that could change, and that whole thing, those numbers can change tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing that you did say though, that's kind of funny, is that you said, hey, it's 18% and it's only pennies. I think what a lot of regular consumers don't understand is this entire game that we're playing is specifically a game of pennies. So every time 2 or 3 cents occurs on a manufacturing level, and that doubles on a wholesale level, or even 40% on a wholesale level, and then it doubles on the retailer level, those 3 cents, just turn into 12. Well, if it was 10, that turned into 40. If it was 15, that turns into 60. So it's very easy to see a game of pennies raise your cost up significantly. Even when it comes to band production, tobacco costs, boxes, shipping, freight, all of those things, all those little mathematical, all those little pennies, they add up really, really quick, especially if you're a smaller brand, right? Because you can't spread over the costs as big as a lot of these other guys can.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I would, and I've had this discussion for 6 years more. That and my wife, she's she was in retail for a very long part of her career. And I argue the pricing model, right? The pricing model, I think, is flawed for the 21st century as we go forward. Although it's the same pricing model has been used. That's she goes, that's how it works. You double, double, double. That's how it works. That's the way it works. It's simple. It's easy. No braining. Not a lot of thinking. I said, yeah, because the bookkeeping of that is a pain in the ass to do it any other way, right? It's too time consuming. It's because we don't have a system to manage that. We're in the 21st century. All right. So if there was a system that actually was industry wide from the manufacturer, the brand owners, whatever, so that SKUs have the cost to make this, all right? You some cost to make this, the leaf, the labor, the boxes, the bands, all the things that go in to get this product. No taxes, just this, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's in column A. There it is. That's how much that costs. Okay? Wholesale, retail, purchasing, whatever, right? Then you back out then you have the taxes, different levels of taxes, right? We got taxes that, when you show up on the dock, outside before even without tariffs, you have all the S chip and the use fees and all of that. All right. It's column B. Tariffs, column C. New York, California, Michigan, high tax states, column D. Right. B, C, and D, to me, should not be doubled. They should not be doubled. Okay. Because of what you just said. B, C, and D should be added to whatever you did to column A, the product. This is the product. Right. And I'll give you on column A should also include your marketing and advertising as a brand owner or whatever to produce that, right? And to sell that. The cost, your cost of your reps and all of that go into that cost, amortized over what you have to do. All right. But these other columns are the things that when you double that, you start getting pennies become dollars.
Sure.
Now, on the flip side, you have retailers that want to maintain their margin. She told me, she says, Jimmy, the retailers want margin. They want their margin, right? And I'm like, I get it. But we also know that, like, retailers, like, she was in the shoe business for a long time, right? shoes come in, they're on the shelf, they come in at this price. 6 months later, they're this price. That you're getting them off the shelf, because you got new stuff you want to bring on the shelf. This is it's similar, but sometimes it's like, hey, that's been on the shelf for 6 months, 10 months, 12 months. Sometimes we're like, hey, that might be a better cigar. So who knows? The shoe don't get better, but the cigar might. So I just have this feeling that we're not looking at it as an industry-wide situation, because I fear that we might begin to price ourselves out of the market. But of course, the market will tell you that, right? And so when I have 20, 25, 30, $40 cigars, or better still, I look at something like this. I'm gonna say about 6 years ago, right? 6 years ago, I could buy a 20 count box of cigars for $150.
Right.
And things went up. So suddenly it's like the magic 10 count box came out.
Yep.
You never heard of a 10 count box. There was 10 count boxes hit the market, right? $150 for a 10 count box.
Right.
Now we have 5-pack boxes.
Sure.
Not even fancy boxes anymore. They're just a 5-pack thing for like $100 and something. Yeah. I just saw these things this past couple of weeks, and I'm like, wow. Just look at that change over time. Because it's what the consumer can pay, right? So the consumer goes in, if they walked in and said, hey, this 20 count box is $300, right, $400, they're gonna be like, I'm not gonna buy a box. I can't afford to buy a box. Right. But I can't, but you know what? If you tell me now, all of a sudden it's like $150 for a 10 count, you're like, I can afford to buy a box. Right. I'm buying a box. I got a box of cigars. I think it's psychological in that pricing as it goes forward. But when does that get to the point where the consumer says, especially new consumers, if you don't have an entry point level, right? Where is that? The old saying, what we need is a great 5-cent cigar, right?
Right.
And we had the great $5 cigars. We had the great $8 cigars. What is the great price cigar today? It's probably $9. $9 today. Find a great $9 cigar, people are jumping on that.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, and they exist.
They do. I don't know how, but they do.
Right. Well, here and again, Jimmy, you've said a lot. So let's back up a step here. As far as game of pennies, when it comes to TTB and doubling those costs, and passing that on to the retailer on that first level, I agree with you. It should be easy as far as determining what your margin is, breaking it down. It doesn't have to be double. I honestly don't think that most manufacturers or brand owners operate on double, because we don't operate on a double up of a 50% margin. It's blanketed between 30 and 45% across all of our products. And they offset, and they probably give you an average of 40%, I would say. Right? Don't quote me on that, but I think that's where we're at. I know for a fact we're not a 50.
I'm not going to quote you. You quoted yourself. You're live.
Hey, I don't fact check on anything. I just say how I feel all the time.
There you go.
So, there is struggle with that, because if you offset your margin on different sizes of vitolas, right, to try and get you that blanketing thing, one vitola might not sell as well, right? If you're banking solely on Robusto and Toro production, okay, maybe then it's easier. But if you're doing a Perfecto and all of a sudden, hey, I have increased margin on this, and that's going to help offset my costs on these other things and raise that up, and then all of a sudden the Perfectos don't move, now you're in trouble, right? So there's more to it than that, right? Labor costs are different across the board. NicaSueño pays one of the highest rates of labor costs in Nicaragua, so much to a point where it's upset other manufacturers, is what it is, right? Skip likes taking care of his people, and he has a good retention rate because of it. So because of that, his cigar should be costing more, right? And yet he's still coming in lower in retail at retail cost than a lot of these other brands. So
Yes.
I've always found that funny, to a point where I always argue with him. I'm like, you need to just raise your prices. Just raise your prices. I don't just, it's a far superior product. I almost think that at some times the consumer is so dumb that they look at the cigar and they say, oh, well, this one's $10.
Must be garbage.
This can't be good.
Right.
I'll take the $15 one over here. That's, way worse as far as the flavor is concerned. Like, you need retailers to actually go in and educate and say, hey, look, I like to make the argument of, listen, you've been told this whole time that you've been sitting in first class when you've been paying for first class pricing, but you're sitting in coach. So here, let me move you in.
He once did the same thing. I just got through talking about. I used to fly first class 30 years ago,
right?
And that say that the seats are smaller, the meals aren't the same, the wine isn't as good. I can still get the decent beverage, but I can no longer get the Cavassier VSOP anymore. I have things have changed. You're right.
That takes me to the end of your last conversation of, hey, things were 20 count boxes and now they're 10 count boxes, and even sometimes they're 5 count boxes. You don't see that just in the cigar industry. That happens across the board. Oreo double stuffed cookies they're no longer double stuffed. They're
potato chips, it's air.
It's this big airy bag, right?
Right.
I mean, the potato chip bag doesn't even make sense to me. Hey, this is one of the most fragile things we have in here. What do we do? Oh, we'll just put some air in here and we'll put them and it'll be good to go. But hey, it's cost efficient, right? So you're gonna see that to the dawn of time, until what happens? You have somewhat of a recession, you have somewhat of a pullback, then you start to see value come back up in product in order to get someone's business, because that's called capitalism, right? And
right.
It's not a perfect system, but it's the best one we got, at least in my opinion.
So that's why I said the consumer is when the consumer starts speaking with their wallet to the level of, I'm not going to put up with these costs anymore, for whatever reason they are, it's going to cause contraction to the point where you're going to have to make an adjustment, or maybe you just make limited editions that are only 200 boxes and they're super, super awesome cigars. And then when you get them or you don't get them, and they're going to cost you $40.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, that's just your natural economic cycle. You have a pullback, right? You have a pullback. And what happens? The guys that don't figure it out go away. And the guys that are willing to work their ass off and make it better, they thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm a fan of that. I'm a huge fan of that. I'm like, let's go. I want to see it. I want to, dude, I've been in this industry for 15 years. I'm still broke. I have more assets. I have a ton of leaves, my family does okay. Like, no one's starving, but I look at some of these other guys in this industry. I'm like, holy, how much money do you have, man? That's incredible. How'd you get there? So, I've seen those guys. I know when the rubber meets the road, they're out. They ain't hanging. That's fine. So I can't wait to get my hands on their consumer, so like, let's go, let's do this. So, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the economic cycles that exist. When it comes to retailers, they're, for one, a great retailer is few and far between. And that's unfortunate, right? I would say, if you're lucky, 20% of them are good. 80% of them don't care about their product. They don't care about their consumer. They just want a place to kind of hang out, and it is what it is. I still feel for that guy. Even though that guy's doing everything wrong, I still feel for that guy. Because that guy, if he's in love with a brand, he's got to spend $2,500 on that brand, right? So call it, I don't know, 8 to 10 different SKUs across the board. And even if he's doubling his money, he's getting the full 50%.
Yeah.
He's got to sell that. He's got to sell that $2,500 worth to make that 50%.
To make his money, right? He has to move the product off the shelf at
Right.
that cost that he wants to make his margin.
Right.
Meanwhile, his investment is tied up. He has money tied up. And that's something that people don't understand when it comes to all of this. And I think it's an important point you bring up. Everybody in the supply chain, from the farmer all the way to the shop owner, okay, has investment tied up. And money tied up costs money.
Right.
Because you're not getting anything on it.
Right. But now, not only that, okay, what the retailer bought on the wholesale level, he doesn't not necessarily get to sell it at the wholesale way that he had to purchase it, right? He bought 20 boxes. How many of those 20 boxes, how many of them do you think he's going to sell by the box?
No.
He's got to take the boxes that are 20, he's got 20 boxes that have 20 sticks inside of them and sell them one by one by one by one. If he's lucky, somebody will buy 5, right? And even if that guy buys 5 out of that box, the guy's still got to sell another 5 to even break even on that box if he sells it at 50%.
Right.
So it's crazy, you know. So
they've got stacks and stacks of these things that they're gonna have to break even. And of course, in a shop, they're gonna look at the combined SKUs and everything. How much do I have in, smart shop owner knows exactly how much they have money tied up in inventory, how
Sure.
much it costs for the inventory, and where their margin is at the end of the year. How much did they make? Because they got to pay for labor, they got to pay for rent, they got to pay for electric. All of that plays into this stuff.
You said smart, bro. I don't, smart is not, it's not a going trend as of late. It hasn't been a going trend for the past decade, unfortunately. And it's sad, when you walk into some of these places and you're just like, hey, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, do you do terms? Terms? You want 30 days? Like, you can't cover the $800 purchase. You need 30 days. No, I don't do terms. I don't do terms. Sorry.
Mhm.
You're in trouble, buddy. You're already, now don't get me wrong. I have retailer friends that I think are great retailers that, if they're struggling or, hey, I just got hit with some taxes or I got hit with this or whatever. Can you give me a couple weeks? Sure, bro. I got you. You're my boy. But make no mistake, that's not happening every single time.
No.
Like, hey, dude, I looked out for you. Now this is where you say you got my back, I got your back too, right? So there's that as well.
And you never want it to get out, that can easily spiral out of control sometimes if you let it go, because it's like suddenly you give them a little extra time, and next thing you know, it's like, I'll pay you half today and I'll pay you half next month.
Right.
And then it's going to be like, you know what, I'll give you, and before you know it, you're out there managing receivable money over periods of time that you never contemplated. And now is your system tracking all of that? And how'd you like to be the accountant that has to deal with all that garbage? They're gonna look at, what are you, nuts? You can't do that.
What are we doing here, man? What are we doing? Wait, so you got the 20 boxes, you gotta sell them all individually. You've sold these individually, but now you're giving this guy on the arm. You haven't even broke even. You got $800 out on the street or whatever. Like, what? I'm sorry, this doesn't even make any sense.
That's right.
So yeah, it's crazy.
So besides this, what else are you featuring, if anything, at PCA again?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that are going on here. We're gonna release the War Bear. It's like our 10th anniversary, and it's gonna be in a Grand Perfecto. And
Grand Perfecto?
Grand Perfecto, yeah. It's 5.5 by 60, I want to say, or 5 3/4 by 60 Perfecto. And It's delicious. It's lighter than the other ones that we've made because of its size. I love it. I think it tastes phenomenal. You know, the good, the blessed, they came in. The blessing and the curse of them coming in is that I burned through all the segundos. I asked Skip to send me the ones that didn't make it, and all of a sudden I quickly go through them and I'm like, oh God, I can't smoke the product. I can't smoke the product. So they came in yesterday and I've already burned through a pack of them. I'm like, oh God, this is not good. So
Oh,
they're delicious. And we also made a new SBC, which stands for Surrounded by Champions. You know, everything is kind of messed up as far as how they come out. They usually come out every 2 years or whatever. Every once in a while, the War Bear and the SBC will line up and they'll drop on the same year. So they both came. They both just came in, and this SBC tastes like nothing I've done before. And you light it up, and it's just like this bam, intense flavor profile, kind of in your face, and then it mellows out to this unparalleled sweetness. And I'm like, God, this one's incredible too. So, you know, it's just a test. I would love to say that it's all me and whoo, I'm so amazing, but I'm not, man. It's just these guys have great tobacco and they have Skip has a great mindset, and you know, the opportunities of working with him are bar none. They're bar none. So we got some bangers that are coming out. Also, you know, I have to mention this. If not, I get yelled at. And everybody's excited about this cigar. Is Tyler came out with the Viso Horny cigar.
yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So last year he made it and he sold it directly to consumers, and I bought a bunch from him. And I said, hey, you know, when you're ready to take it to the next step, let's work on us facilitating the product. We're already established with NicaSueño. We'll handle distribution for you and we'll help promote the product. So it just came to fruition. It just came in, and that's what we're looking at right now. So you know, Aaron Loomis was excited about it. I'm like, dude, of all those cigars, that's the one you're talking to me about? And he's like, yeah. And Half Wheels.
Let's just pop that's funny because I just pushed that out last week. So let me just share that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, we handled that
So
press.
this is the Viso Horny, the 555, right?
Yep.
So it's 5x55, box pressed, right?
Yep.
This is the unbanded one, I imagine, right?
Well, that's what it's going to look like. It's got a little ribbon on the bottom.
Little ribbon on the bottom. All right. He's no longer doing the direct to consumer, right? He's making it available to cigar retailers nationwide.
Yep.
The story behind this, the Viso Horny, for those that don't know, is that this is crafted to be enjoyed by many enthusiasts. Possible, and partnering with top retailers was the next logical step.
Yep.
And then let's see. Oh, so it's a broadleaf. So the broadleaf, it's all Viso. Okay.
Correct.
That's what makes this cigar very interesting, right? I think the last one was in 2022, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought it might have been 2020. Dude, you know what, man? As far as I know, the years kind of blow by. I thought might have been even last year, but you might be right. It might be 22 or 23.
I think it was 22, 23. Yeah. So this is broadleaf, Cameroon, Nicaraguan, and Honduras. Funny, I should probably look at the Viso Horny. So let me just take a look at that. Go back here for a second. So yeah, 23, the Uncle Luke.
Yep.
452.
Yep.
Right. So in comparison, Nicaraguan and Honduran, African Cameroon, and U.S. broadleaf.
Yep.
Okay. So the new one doesn't have the Honduran in it, it looks like.
It does. I think it's similar in the fashion. That it might be a little different for the internals, but it's not. I don't think it's off by much. You know, the difference is the 5x55. It's a box press.
Right. Oh yeah, it does have endorse. I'm sorry. I take that back. So $10 to $15. So this one's 15 and a 5,000 cigar total production.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So.
Yep. So I get to handle distribution on that, which is which is fun, which is hilarious to me to some degree. You know, Tyler is awesome. He's a great guy. He's all about cigars. He takes a lot of abuse from us sometimes. But in the same aspect is like, no one else gets to make fun of him but us. Like other people don't get to pick on him. He's with us,
He's a friend.
Yeah, he's our
One
idiot.
of us. He's one of
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
He's one of us. He's one of
right.
us.
Exactly. So, he's been working hard on this. It's a great blend. It's a fantastic cigar, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to handle distribution for him and help him kind of elevate into that next level. The crazy part for me is, and this isn't the first time this has happened to me, is you work your ass off for some things, right? And you got these brands and these blends, and you've been, I've been at it for 10 years with Postania, and we've ranked top 25 numerous times at this point, and still, the Be So Horny is like, oh, we're really excited about this. I'm like, son of a bitch, man, you gotta be kidding me.
Geeks, man. Come on, come on. We know how this business works, right? I love the guys like the geeks that are out there that love these kinds of things, that just gravitate to it and say, hey, this one individual making this stuff. Like, you know what? You know who makes some interestingly banging cigars on extremely low production rate is Kevin Parrow. All
Okay.
right. All right. Kevin is just, he's trying to work it hard. I know he was down in Nicaragua for like what, almost 2 months or something like that, getting his teeth taken care of. But at the same time, he was out there filtering around and working stuff. Um, Same thing. People like he brings those back into Massachusetts, New England area. They just like it's done. I mean, it doesn't have a big collection, right? But boom, done, off the shelf. Go to when's the next one? And that's fine. I mean, that's part of the fun in this industry is having having all these normal production lines that are out there, and then finding these things that you're gonna get them or you're not gonna get them. And then do you smoke them all? You hold them, right? You put them in your humidor for a year or 2 years. You come back and revisit them, right? Just because people like to know, does it get any better? So.
Yeah, and the reality is that it could have happened to a better guy. Tyler's Tyler. He's absolutely amazing. He's just a good, I guess, guy. I don't want to say kid, but he's a good guy, and he's got a lot going on. So I tip my hat to him, and he's doing fantastic. So, and
Good.
everybody's excited about this cigar.
He's going to
So
be at the show, yes.
yeah, he's going to be at the show. He's going to take some of the abuse. Um, he's already getting to experience some of that brand owners and manufacturers get to experience from dealing with specific retailers at times. You're just like, okay, dude. I get it. So the good news is that he's not going at it alone.
Right.
I think that makes a big difference. He's a guy that's got. When I got into this industry, I had a huge heart and I was extremely naive. And man, these people in this industry will take you apart in seconds. It doesn't matter if they're retailers, it doesn't matter if they're brands, it doesn't matter if they're manufacturers. If they see an opportunity to shatter your dreams, they're going to do it. And I got that experience early on, and it was devastating for me. It was tough. And to have the opportunity to protect a guy like Tyler when those scenarios will come to fruition, I'm looking forward to it. And he's already getting a little bit of it now. So it's gonna I'm blessed with the ability to kind of protect. It's like protecting your younger brother, right?
I've experienced that can flow down and put the shield around him a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, you don't get to do
But he
that.
needs to feel it too, because he needs to understand, right? You know, this is what could happen if you're not eyes open, what's going on.
Yeah, I think that he's kind of eyes open to it. I just don't know if he has the uh, the characteristic within him to be as blunt as I am. You know, I remember, I want to say it was like 2021. So it was PCA that opened up right after COVID, and he was helping a buddy in a booth, and some retailer just totally tore him apart. And he came up to us and he was talking about it. And I'm like, well, where is the fucking guy? Well, we'll go talk to him right now. It's like, no, no, it's okay. It's okay. Like, no, no, it's not okay. Someone doesn't get to just approach you and treat you like you're subhuman because they're trying to beat you up for a deal or whatever their mindset is at that time. It's not okay, you know? So I won't let that happen ever to him if he's around us. So all he's got to do is just give me a look and I will handle it, you know, and he will feel it. He will definitely feel it, but he won't have to handle it himself or go at it alone. So
Now, do you have any other brands under your distribution umbrella?
yeah, Sinisa Fina is another one. They're coming out with a Connecticut. They told us about it yesterday. The show is in what, 5 days? What are we doing? What are we doing? But you know, Sam's awesome, Rosie's awesome. They own Fine Ash Cigars out in Arizona.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're a lot of their stuff is Dominican, or everything they make is Dominican. So it's nice to have in the portfolio. And then Fosforo, which is Jeff Mute's at Riverside or Match Cigar Bar. We handle distribution for him. And he has a great cigar that's Nicaraguan and it's at a great value. So all of those things kind of piece together very well in the overall portfolio. We do have
Sure.
one with Matt Hunt from FQ. However, he hasn't really created anything recently.
Yeah,
So
but you just brought up a name from the past, man. What has he been up to? Yeah.
he's doing something. I don't know. I see him every once in a while. He's got a nice tan. It looks like he's doing okay. He's making some
He's had a
money.
nice tan. He's always, he's down. He's a dapper guy. I always liked the way he dressed. He's very professional.
He's always looking smooth. You know,
Yeah.
that guy can work a room.
Yes, he can.
He's right up. It's like Michael Herklotz and then Matt Hunt. He's right
Yeah.
there. You know, I don't like it's just I think that the cigar industry is hard. You know, it takes a lot out of you, man. It's a lot of hard work. The first time we made cigars, I think we spent like 50 grand. You know, I think the last time we bought cigars, I think it was 400 grand or something. You know, there's been nominal money to come out of it for us. It just goes back into growth. So
You got to keep rotating it back in because you need capital to work and build, and build a company without capital. If you
right.
have the vision of building a company, you
Yeah,
know.
that's forever the challenge. And you know, I guess you could get money from other places. I'm just not really good with working with somebody else. My business partner is my brother. I trust him completely. He's more back end as far as cash flow and all the Excel sheets and all those numbers and stuff on the retail level and on the wholesale level, and it works fantastic for us. So
Right.
you were saying before, you know, retailers don't know what they spend when it comes to what they have. Some of them don't even know what they have in inventory. And as a good retailer, you should. I love having a conversation with a brand and they're like, oh, you spent $18,000 with us last year. I'm like, no, we didn't. We spent $27,956.27. You know, go back and look. I'm like, oh, I get, yeah, you know, I'm like, okay, so yeah, you can't spit out some number to me because I know exactly how much money we spent on you. And it's not because of me, it's because of him.
Right. Now, how many shops would you say Pastania is in now at this stage?
You know, I think that that's a hard number to say because I can tell you that we've dealt with north of 250 accounts over the span that we've been open, right?
Mhm.
Maybe close to 300. Some of them have changed ownership. Some of them have never really been in love with the brand. They thought it would catch fire and they didn't work on it. So, you know, what that sustainable number is, I would say, you know, in that 50 to 100 range, you have good retailers. trying to figure out where that other 150 are that are going to be consistently sustainable is your forever challenge. You know, what's kind of funny is there was a guy who went and joined RoMa. His name was Sean, call him lightweight heavy. And he used to run the box in Baltimore. I'm drawing a blank in the city, but it was in Baltimore. And he was great. He loved Postania. He loved RoMa. He got a job at RoMa. So what happened to the box? You know what I mean? It's legitimately that one guy. That one guy who loved the cigar, who would teach people about the cigar. He started to push it in that direction where you would build the regular consumers. You take that guy out of the equation, whether he goes and gets another job or, you know, he goes to another retailer, he gets out of the industry, whatever, that could dramatically affect your business in that store. No matter how much time and effort you dedicate to that, unless there's another person that you've touched that says, oh, you make amazing cigars and I'm in, it's not going to move. You know, it's not Arturo Fuente. It's not Monte Cristo. It's not Roman.
It's not that household name. It's not a Perdomo. It's not, you know, it's like, you know, when the new cigar smoker enthusiast is entering into a shop, they know all of these big names, and it's up a lot of times it's up to the shop to help introduce them, not to take away from what they like, but to add to what they can enjoy based on their profile and introduce them to some of these smaller brands that they may not know of because they're kind of new. And even as seasoned people in this industry, some of them don't know some of these brands. Let's be real.
Sure. Yeah, it's all about educating your consumers. Putting in the time and the effort and educating them is what's important to us. It's always been important to us as retail, and it's even more important to us now on the other side. If you have a guy that's coming in and he wants to smoke Romeo and Julietas, there's the chances of you getting him off that cigar highly unlikely. If he's smoking 2 or 3 of those every week, he's been smoking them for 30 years. It's never going to happen, right? I could argue that with Romeo. I could argue that with the old school Monte Cristos. I could argue that with some of your Fuentes. I can't really argue that with any other brand. If you're a Padron guy,
I would put Perdomo in that list.
You know, I would. I understand where you're coming from. I can tell you right now, it's not in our humidor.
Not in your humidor. That's fun.
We no longer carry Perdomo, and
used to.
Yeah, but then when they required us to do X amount with shelf space and they wanted to take over this huge, we couldn't do it. So they said, we're closing your account. I said, okay. And I could tell you to this day, no one comes in and says, you got Perdomo? No. All right, I'm out. Now, obviously they sell plenty of product in the industry. Mm-hmm. I just don't, for me, I don't think that they're a brand. They don't qualify for me as legacy in that legacy portfolio.
Okay. That's what you said.
They're up there for sure. They're up there. They're just for me, I don't think that they qualify in legacy. So I'm never going to get a Romeo and Julieta guy off of Romeo and Julieta. Never. The guy's been doing it for 30 years. These are he likes his bully or whatever it is. And, you know, he's going to take his 2 or 3 and he's not looking to try anything. Don't to that guy. Leave that guy alone.
I go to events. I go to events, you know, like whether they be weddings or you know things, you know, gatherings, where there are, you know, other cigar people around, you know, not a lot, but a handful, people my age, and I'll bring my stash with me, and I'll hand them something. They'll look at some of these things like, I've never heard of this. I said, well, try it.
Right.
You know, what do you normally smoke? And you know, he'll take out a Romeo or a Monte or something like that. And I go, okay, yeah, try this one. Just for fun. Just try it. You know, just let me know what you think. I won't tell you anything about it. Just try it. And sometimes they like it, and sometimes they're like, well, it doesn't taste like this one.
Well, you just put them in first class, right? You just gave them the experience of the way better cigar.
Yeah, or at least you're trying to.
Hey, some people just want to sit and coach.
Right.
You know,
Some people like American cheese. Some people like Gouda.
That's it. That's it. That's it. And to each their own. There's
And I
there's
mean American cheese like Kraft American
I
cheese.
yeah, I figured that was where you're going.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not talking about good Wisconsin cheese. There's some
talking
really
about
good Wisconsin cheese,
peeling it
but
out of the plastic and slapping it on the burger.
slap it on a thing, it's like, yeah, for sure. Shop's doing well.
Yeah, the shop is doing great. We always try and implement new things. We're so focused on customer service. We're It's really what we focus on the most. Taking care of the consumer and making sure that they feel like they're a part of something. So as long as you have that mentality, you'll continue to grow and kind of establish. If you don't, if you just treat them like another person, just a transaction, then they can do that transaction online. The cigar can be
And
sent to them.
that's the differentiator. You're right.
Yeah,
The you're not getting the experience you're getting online is you're getting you're getting the same cigar for less. You have to wait a day, 2, 3 days for it to show up, depending upon where you are. The shop, it's there. You have people around you. There's camaraderie. You're sitting down. Hopefully, you're having conversation, having a drink, talking to people. So yeah, that's the night and day, two parts.
yeah.
What I always liked about your shop, and I got to get back over to see you guys, and I got to just start driving around again because I love going in your place and just sitting at the board table. I mean, that's just unique.
Yeah. And the conversations that ensue there are incredible. You know,
Absolutely. Solve world's problems there.
oh my God, all aspects, all walks of life.
I can only imagine the conversations that are going on at that table right now in today's current climate.
Oh, I walked in there today and it was popping off for sure, Uh it's entertaining. It's entertaining.
It's but it's so long as it stays civil, it's all good. As soon as it doesn't go civil, you start talking baseball. I tell people, talk baseball, talk sports, talk football. Talk the latest movie you watched. Like I have a shop here locally, Jimmy's Cigar Lounge over in Melbourne. Little tiny old school shop. All right. And the difference between him and Executive, which is our high-end shop, right,
Right.
is that they're the old school. They got the leather couches that are kind of, they got issues, but it's okay. They got two TVs on both sides of the room. And they run through old reels, they go through old movies, they watch old sports games, like old World Series, old football games, you know. And the conversation we have in there it's special. It really is special because they're very civil, everybody discusses things. We talk about current events. Nobody's biting each other's head off. The other day, I dropped my wife off at work because I only have one car now because we've downgraded ourselves. And I dropped her off at work, and I had my dog with me. So it's a dog-friendly place, which is cool. So I brought my dog in with me, and it was in the morning. It was at 9 o'clock. I'm not always in a shop at 9 o'clock in the morning, though I could because I'm retired. I could do this all day if I want to. But I show up, and it was a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous day. Like last week it was like 70 degrees in the morning, blue skies. And the guys had the chairs outside the lounge sitting down, these old chairs. And it reminded me of The Sopranos. I said, I just needed to go get one of those Polly Walnut things, sit there. Because the crowd of us were just all just, 5 guys just sitting around, smoking cigars, just watching cars go by and having conversation. I like that. To me I really enjoy that experience. Sometimes you go into a shop, a bigger shop, right? Or you can get lost in that shop. You could sit down. You may not know anybody, okay? Or maybe you do know some people there, but they're not always there. All right, and you kind of, you're kind of alone. You're having a drink and a cigar. Maybe you're talking to the bartender, right? But when you go to those small shops and they keep it running like that, it's awesome. It's like going to have you been to Harry's up in New York?
No.
Oh my God.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I have.
Yeah, that's just he's hey baby, and he just has like this. I mean, you walk in that shop, it's just like this
Right.
is this is old school, and
Really?
finds stuff down in the humidor. He starts pulling boxes out of the bottom of the shelves, and he finds these gems sitting there that he forgot he had. He goes, "Oh yeah, let's smoke some of these."
That's the best parts, man.
You
I
know,
always
and
tell the regulars, I tell the regulars that are always hanging out, you better say hi. If someone walks in the door, you better say hello. Don't you dare
oh yeah.
or you give them a look. Do your best to make them welcome and have them join you.
Well, I have talk about that. I have so my one of my sponsors for the show is Catelli Cigars. I don't know if you're familiar with Catelli, right? So Catelli Cigars down at Vero Beach, husband wife team. The wife Kathy, she is amazing like that. I'll go down there and hang out, and anybody that walks in, whether they're a regular or not, she'll introduce, and then she'll walk around and introduce you to all these other. Hey, this is Boston Jimmy. He does this. He has this roofing. And she'll just walk you around and introduce you to all these people, and suddenly you have something to talk about. Oh, you do car repair, or you do detailing. I need my car detailed. All of a sudden you're running business, and it's kind of like the old barber shop, right? People bond over this. This leads to so much more
Right.
if you help make that happen.
Of course. And I think that's the other thing too that really needs to happen here more is cigars need to be more understood on a social level, and they need to be more ingrained and accepted in our culture. If your consumer right now is about 5% of your population, I want to see it at around 20 or 30%. Life gets a lot easier. Life gets a lot easier for everybody, the consumer, the retailer, the brand owners, everybody. If you just six x'd it, five times five x 6x, the
Right.
things are a lot better. Things are a lot better, and people are
So
getting along.
we're coming up on the hour and a half mark. So I'm gonna get one little thing I'll ask, and then I'll give you the last word. Um, what are you watching on TV these days? Got something special you've been locked into?
Uh, I'm trying to push myself through White Lotus.
Interesting season this year for
Yeah.
sure.
Uh, in,
I kind of like last week's episode. It didn't go the way I thought it would go, which was good because you know
yeah, I'm trying. It's interesting enough. And the next season that comes on, if my wife wants to watch it, we'll watch it. It's okay. It seems like it took 4 episodes for it to get anywhere. That
yes,
was that
a
was
lot of character development and stuff, a lot of things going on, introduction, old characters, new characters, and they did spend a lot of time on the first few episodes just building that.
yeah. And we just finished Reacher.
Okay, I have not got into Reacher this season.
That's pretty good. You watch it, it's like a book. It
Hmm.
feels like they just took the quotes and everything out of the book, and that's really how you kind of live it. And I'm okay with it. It's almost like a show where I can turn half my brain off. It's got good enough acting, and it's got a good enough plot where I can enjoy it. And I enjoy Alan Ritchson. I think he's a fantastic actor. I find him entertaining. I would love to see him as like Batman or something. I think that would be cool instead of the Batman that we have. This emotional.
Maybe it's time for a new one. Yeah, we keep cycling Batman. Yeah.
I just the direction that they went in this last Batman, I thought was terrible. He's just a detective in an old
Yeah.
Charger,
Yeah, it's
and he's talking about his feelings. I don't care about you. I care about vengeance. I want to see vengeance. So,
Have you
so
watched The Pit yet?
no, is that good?
Oh, okay. This has got to be the number one show that I'm absolutely locked in. I'm so locked into this show, like I was on The Sopranos. I'm not getting up off the couch
Really?
even to take this because I have to watch it to the very. Think of ER on steroids. So Noah
Really?
Wild, right, is the main character. Remember, he was from ER like 30 years ago, right? And it is it's 15 episodes, which translates into 15 hours of a single shift in an emergency room in a public hospital in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Right?
Oh,
And every hour that you watch is the hour of that day
like
continuing every
24.
hour next. Hmm?
Do you remember the show 24?
Yeah, like 24. So it just keeps moving along and things, but the theme, whereas 24, there was more of they were pushing to a thing. This
Right.
is just things that are happening in this hospital. They have real doctors that are actually cast in there in this emergency room. Okay. Real doctors are actually casted in there. And the operations, the things you see are just done so well. All right. And the drama that's involved, like you get into this point in this thing was a mass shooting. Okay. And there are just bodies coming in to this hospital, right? With gunshot wounds on them, and they're getting tagged different ways. There's red, yellow, and this pink, because if the red, that's the one you got to work on right away, try to save a life. And sometimes lives aren't saved. Sometimes they die, and the emotion of the doctors and the nurses, okay, and the administrators are all play through this. And if you, I have friends that are doctors, nurses that watch, and they say that is absolutely real. The way
Wow.
they do. That's what happens
Okay.
in there. And the
Oh,
emergency room is super crowded. There are people coming in. They got, they broke their pinky, doing something, and they want to be seen right away. And they take a look at, well, you need to sit down for a while because this person over here is, he's got a knife out of his neck or something. We got to take care of him.
more
Well,
important.
no, you got to take care of me first. It's like, then security gets involved. This really happens in hospitals. So it is a riveting show. I can't recommend it enough. It is something, and it's on HBO, so you get it on Max. I think we're coming up on the next to last episode was last night, I think, and so next week is the last one. So you'll be able to stream the whole thing, right now. So you could just sit back and binge this on a moment if you get a moment to binge through and just be like,
Oh, well, then we're in. We're gonna have to check it out.
and yeah, then they hit me back and say, Jimmy, well, you tell me whether I'm crazy or not. But I don't know anybody yet that has seen it that says they don't like it.
Okay.
Right.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm going to
We,
give you the last word.
what for me?
Yeah.
Uh, well, I was gonna say 1923 is the other one we're watching right now too. Like to tell you.
1923.
Yeah. So that's a spinoff from Yellowstone.
Oh, okay.
That's with Harrison Ford.
Oh, yes. I have not seen this yet, but I know what you're talking about. Okay.
It's
And while
pretty.
you're on, good.
It's interesting times. It's telling it kind of shows when all of a sudden technology starts to interfere with everyday life, and how there's some pushback about it, and a lot of that stuff is still kind of common 100 years later, and you're
It is.
seeing this now almost to a point where technology is so much in our kids' hands with iPhones and iPads and stuff that it's too much. I think it causes anxiety issues. It causes all these insecurities with these kids. So, you know, we do our best to regulate it in this house. We want them to experience it, but we also don't want it to be a babysitting mechanism. So it's cool. It's cool to compare.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I'll take your input on that. And then actually, before you go to the last word, since you brought up a third one, the other one that I was never into, but for some strange reason this season I got into it, was the gemstones, the righteous gemstones.
People have been talking about that.
This season, it's off the chart. Okay, it is stupidly crazy. Okay, how this show runs, and John Goodman. You look at John Goodman and you think of Roseanne, right? And you see him in this, and yeah, John Goodman, but he's a little different John Goodman, right? He's like the pastor, the guy that runs the evangelical church, but he's been this season he's retired. But episode 1 was what really got me into it for some strange reason. They went back in time to the Civil War.
Okay.
When the first gemstone became who he was. And I'll just put it this way. The guy was a killer who became, let's just say he stole the pastorship. Okay. Yeah. And he ends up in the Confederate Army, whatever, and it just goes on from there. And that one episode takes place back in the 1800s, and then everything comes after that, and it ties everything else before and going forward together to say, now I understand how these guys became grifters.
That's awesome.
Go through it, and then scenes in there, man. There's like one where like Goodman's character's brother, right? Like one of his last episodes, he was out water skiing on a lake, and the guy's like buck-ass naked from the top down, right? and everything, you see everything, he's like, things are dangling around, and he's an old dude, man. He's like a weird dude, and it's like, he just looked, and it just for some strange reason just absolutely cracks me up watching this. I'm like, oh yeah, complete parody on the evangelical world, but they do it well.
That's fantastic. We'll have to look at that one too.
Yeah, I think that comes on either right after the Pit or right after, maybe it's right after Lotus.
We watch it all on Max now. On Max.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We've disconnected. We've cut the cord, the cable cord. So
I hear you. You still got to pay for Max. You got to pay for this. You got to pay for that. It's no matter how you look at it when it comes to television and entertainment today. I hate looking at. I avoid looking at how much it costs me for entertainment that I don't use.
Right.
I have this because I like this. I have this because I like that. I've got Sirius XM radio in my car because I like having the different channels and listen to it along the way instead of terrestrial and not having the interrupts and the breaks, right? But it costs you $23 a month. It's like, all right, it's not a lot of money, but
yeah.
I have Pandora on here. And now what I do on Pandora, I just put this in my car, and it's $5 a month. And you pay $5, you get no commercials, no nonstop streaming of whatever channel music you want. You just put in there, I want to listen to heavy metal, I want to listen to punk, I want to listen to jazz, I want to listen to this. It's just no stop. Why am I paying $23? Oh, because my wife likes to listen to the news channels when she drives. That's the only reason I have it.
And you will keep that for all of eternity.
Wow. Yeah. So, happy wife, happy life. You should see. I'll show you pictures of my kitchen project when I come out next week that we're finishing up now. That's been my thorn in my side, but at the same time, things got done today. The boxes showed up today, and I look at my kitchen now, and I'm like going, "Yeah, I like this."
Right.
So she's all kinds of happy.
That's awesome.
And it's all that matters.
Absolutely.
All right, now I'll give you the last one.
Well, hey, thanks so much for having me. I don't really have anything else to add, so I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm sorry that it took 6 years. I hope it doesn't take another 6 years to have me back on. This has been a great conversation, man, and I look forward to doing it again with you, and I look forward to seeing you at the show. So,
absolutely, I can't wait to get to the show. I know where you're at. I've got I don't think I have a scheduled I don't think I made a scheduled appointment, but I will say if I look at I'm planning my exercise walk because the as you know, the this particular venue is different than Vegas, right? Because it's long. You've been to this one, right?
Yeah.
Back in 2015. It's a long, long venue. So if you don't plan it right, you're walking from the 1000s to the 4000s, and it's just ginormously long corridor with a narrow crossover where Vegas is this way where you're zigging and zagging. This one, you got to go run down here, go over here, and then you got to run. If you don't do it right, you're running back the other way.
Can I
So
bring
I'm
an
trying to,
electric? I
huh?
was I was debating about bringing an electric scooter. Can I bring an electric scooter?
Do you remember Ryan Gallimore?
Yeah.
Back in the day, in 2015, he was launching that cigar called Swinger Cigars back then, before the
Right.
PCA hit us. And if you remember what he did, because it was all golf related, he had two golf carts with the logo on the side, and he had two models that were driving the golf carts
Okay.
and would pick people up anywhere along the way and drop them off and just constantly go zigging and going back and forth the main corridor, dropping people off where they want to go.
And there was no problem with that?
He had to get permission to do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm right now looking at Saturday. Right now, my calendar says Saturday. I'm gonna probably swing by you, RoMa Craft, in that area around 12:30 in the afternoon. So 12:30, 1 o'clock, that time frame.
Sounds good.
So I'll see you on the first day for sure.
I love it, man. I'm excited. Yeah, I got you in there. You're on the schedule.
I'm on the schedule.
Yep.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure because the other thing I got to always make sure is when I do the schedule because I remember a couple of years ago the schedules were coming in and then what was happening is it was I have to put it in my spreadsheet because if it goes into my calendar,
Right.
it puts it in Eastern time, and I was completely screwed up. I was missing appointments all over the place. I was like, what? I know. I said, oh man, it's right. It's 2 hours if you want. So this time I got everything in a spreadsheet that just says, okay, print out my spreadsheet and I have the map. I say, this is where I got to be.
Yeah.
So
Got a plan.
I yeah, been around the block a few times now. I know how I'm doing this.
Oh.
All right.
Well, thank you so much again. I appreciate you having me on. So
Yeah. So thank you for joining. Thank you for taking time out on your Friday night.